Hi, welcome. So, what are we learning today? We're learning context engineering and we're learning for product managers. So, that's the agenda today. Why this topic? Because I'm spending more time on LinkedIn than I should generally. I'm Mahesh. If you're here for the first time, let me just do a quick introduction. I worked at all the bank companies. I worked at Meta, I worked at AWS, I worked at Google, I worked at Microsoft for 10 years, and I've learned a lot. I'm doing AI since 2016, and I've built Vision AI Dev Kit, I've built PyTorch, large language model specific libraries, which was used by Meta and GPT to train GPTs. I've worked and built a framework called Bedrock, agents for Bedrock, which people use to build agents. So that's what I've done. And then I went to Google, where I built a multi agent framework or multi agent system, which is used by Google to automate back office for Google Cloud. That means support, legal, and other agents. And let's get to it. What is the agenda today? We'll talk about what is context engineering. We'll talk about what is the impact of good and bad context to your AI agents. We'll discuss quickly what is the difference between prompt engineering and context engineering. Uh, this is like a cheeky question which people ask, so I thought I will just address it anyways. Then we will discuss actually why you should care about as a product manager, requirements you should be writing, what I want to see in the new PRDs that you are writing. So that's that. How can you evaluate or put evaluation requirement for context engineers or context specific evaluation? And then I thought maybe some metrics and scorecard or goals. That would be a very good agenda. So let's talk about context. What is context engineering? So context engineer is a new word. So let me just break that down what it is. We have spoken about it in this forum many times, but let's just see what is context engineering. So we discussed it many times in this community, but let's revise it. So now we have something called world models or these LLMs or foundation models, which is abstraction of the world, which can have or answer your questions, take different roles. But this is an abstraction of all the learnings possible. We are trying to feed into these models. We call them AI models, we call them LLMs, we call them foundation models, all. But to work greatly, they need to do few things. They need your instructions, user instructions. So you can just tell them to take a role and all. They will do that. They need to know how your world works. So specific context about your world. People call these retrieval augmented generation, RAG, knowledge, all the documents you provide about your company. If I have to query my course or give my clone, I will put all my recordings there. That's that. So this is your knowledge piece. Then you have the piece of, we call them signals. This is current state of the world. This is where you query your SQL databases and find out, okay, if I, this is how the world works, what's the current state of the world, and then augment that to your queries. Then you have things that can change the state of the world. These are your tools. So tools that can change the state of the world. So these are actually, you can find out how many vocations are left, those API calls behind the scenes, or there is a picture that you can create, or you can write code at runtime to do things. All these are that category. And if you're talking to me, this is the new one, which we didn't discuss earlier in this forum, like this particular slide. We discussed it during multi agents, but then there is this idea of memory. What is memory? Okay, you will have many conversations with this model, and I can store it, but I can give you all the context of all the previous conversation, or I can give you succinct 5 conversations that we had in past, or 5 sessions that we did in this community, or I can give you a succinct summary of all the conversations, or I can have first in, first out. That's memory. And memory can be short term memory. Maybe I want to just do what we have discussed so far in this session. That could be short term memory. And I can have a long term memory which is my memory of all the sessions I have done in this call or anywhere I have done, that the best of that I can store in that. So then you also need memory to be awesome. And then on top of it, you have your guardrails, your policies. These are your policies, your output structure. I need the output in this format. Mahesh should use his board, not use his board. All that are another specific restrictions. If you put all of these, if you want to work with these models, you need everything beyond this thing to be provided to these models. So if you plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this whole thing they are calling how to put all this information on every user query into the model is called context engineering. The art or science of providing all these things in the best possible way, that is context engineering. Okay, so now we have context engineering. This is like another name of that is prompt engineering. We did it in prompts, but memory tools, what tools are available, they become a little broader. So people came up with this idea of context engineering, and now they are selling you a new course, which is called context engineering, not prompt engineering. And you see something new. Okay, what is the difference between this and prompt engineering? Not many actually. It's pretty simple. So let's quickly go through that also. So what is prompt engineering? Okay,
Maybe
great.
for like prompt engineering is like help me create an image of a fox in a
Correct.
forest.
Correct. Create an image is a good example. You give your email and say, make it polite. And in the same context, what could be a context engineering example? So if you give an email and give a very specific, simple instructions like make it polite, it's still prompt engineering because you're not doing a lot in the context.
Context engineering will be mostly around um, how the journey looks like.
In the same example, if I extend, I could say,
Yes.
hey, why don't you respond? You are a legal firm and I'm a lawyer and respond to every contract that I get. The use case is if I get a contract, you respond to the risks on that contract. Okay, if I have to do that, I have to do much more than just a simple instruction because first I need to know what kind of contract it is. Then I have to check in the long term memory. Then, if the user has said something, I have to take them as a short term memory. If I give them an answer, I need to learn from them. So the use case is different, which is respond. If I get a contract in my email, respond with all the risks. In that case, you need more context engineering than just prompt engineering. If you look at how can you optimize a prompt, constraints, chain of thought. We can say that, hey, go step by step or think like this way, and then people will be very happy. Or explain yourself, which is plan, which is another way of implementing chain of thought or attention, and give it constraints. So put instructions saying, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Give it what is right, what is wrong. So in the shorts also you can do, or instructions. If I have to do the same here, I have to think about many things. First, I have to think about filling the context correctly because here I can do as much as I have a problem of abundance here. So first I need to manage the context length because if I am adding information, how the world works, what's the current state of the world, what are the tools available, what is the output of all the signals, all that first I have to manage. Or if I can optimize one thing, I will optimize context length because we'll see in the next slide that even if the model support a lot of context these days, like a 2 million context is a normal thing, but beyond 100K, we see a lot of challenges for models to give us right answers. So how can we give bare minimum information with the right context is one thing we need to optimize when you do context engineering. Another is managing each unit differently. So you want to have the right retrieval, you want to have the right memory, you want to have a long or short term memory, the right mix of that. So each unit level optimization you need to do, not just one Uber level, but unit level too. And then you have to restrict number of tools. You will know in a second why, or put relevant tools only based on the user query. Because at some point, when you build these enterprise systems, you will have maybe 100 of tools. current model cannot perform good if they got more than 30 tools in their context. So how can you reduce from 100 to 30? You have to build that system. So that's an example of each unit level optimization. So that's a second difference. So prompt engineering is simple. Context engineering is a little harder, or I would say more contextual in nature. Because it's more contextual, you have to do unit level optimization. I gave one example, and then when you bring them together, you have to do a lot of optimization on context length, or what kind of right context in what order you are adding.
Mahesh, just quickly, is orchestration and like when to apply orchestration, is that also part of context engineering? Does it fall underneath that sort of thing? Like when to
Yeah, I
know
will. Yeah, I will keep it outside because it's a thing that gives the input, but a context engineer need not to be orchestration engineer. It's a continuous way of you getting user instructions without the user involved. So the orchestration can provide that input, but after that you need to go do context engineering to find,
Thank
given this
you.
instruction, what I need. So you can decouple them for ease. You can keep it, but it will be hard for you to write requirements. So if I design it, I will keep it a little bit a separate unit. So we know now, broadly, we know what is prompt. Context is just prompts engineering plus plus. So if you were already doing all this like tools, memory management, RAG as part of your context strategy, then there is nothing new for you. Context engineering is equal to prompt engineering for you. But if you are not doing all this, think, and your systems are not working to the accuracy that you expect, you need to do all these things. So I listed down, there's another one which tools involved. There are much more tools in context engineering. If you have them, then it's a complex system and you will need them. Now we know what are prompt and context engineering differences. What is the impact if you give bad context? Or even if you have, now you are doing, all of you will be context engineer after this call, then let's see what happens when these things don't work, or where are the fail cases of context engineering, not prompt engineering. You can say prompt engineering or context engineering interchangeably, but let's talk about context engineering getting into future. So if we are doing context engineering, where they fail or what are the failure modes, you can see that we have seen this all along. We have done agentic RAG session in past. That's one challenge in context. It's not going away. That your RAG system without right context, like what to retrieve from the knowledge of the world, if you don't specify what you are asking, there is a 40% chance that you will get wrong information from your databases. For an example, if I do not articulate what question I'm asking correctly, I will not get the right contract information back. Second is, if you're doing multiple conversation, so in a chatbot or once you build complex AI agents, you will talk to them, right? You will have, okay, go give me risk in this contract. It gives you 5 risk. But then you say, no, 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 no. These risk I know. Give me indemnification or liability specific risk. Then it goes and gives you indemnity, but forgets liability. Then you say, okay, give me liability. These are called multi-turn conversations. It's not a single turn, it's multi-turn. I'm taking multiple turns, and you have used this because all of us grew up in chat GPT. We have taken for granted that everything is AI is multi-turn. It is not. When you actually build your multi-agent systems yourself, which most of the people here, those are from cohort, can tell you that you have to handle this memory, that what should be the context getting from one turn to another, because the model provider does not give you anything to handle multi-turn conversations. If you're going to do that, then what they are saying is, we build our own support bot in past, and what we found is after 2 turns, our accuracy dropped 60% in the quality. Why? Because we couldn't manage the context correctly. Here is an example in this source where they talk about a bank chatbot, which is just finding wrong credit card information. You can assign these things, right? You will have a multi-agent system and you will say, go do this. But that agent or that agent is not even authorized to have access to the data that you think they need to do that job. And you see failures downstream. because of those use cases. So the moment you start doing this context engineering thing, you will open a Pandora box of new challenges in your AI systems. You don't get the right context, you get the bad context, you can't find the right tools, you don't have the privilege to use the tools, or the tools do not have, with that user context, access to get information. And that's where your agents will get lost. Let me show you an example. So this is an NDA. You did simple prompt engineering. You said, hey, here's my system prompt. Anybody? Difference between system and user prompts? System instruction is you are a legal assistant. You're tasked on reviewing NDAs for liability and compliance risk, highlight full clause text risk. And then a user came at that particular time and said, hey, I want you to review an NDA. Give me red flags on financial risks, indemnity, governing law, renewal, and third party. If you just ask that question to ChatGPT, this is the response we got. We got a response saying, hey, this looks pretty fine. Liability is not bad. Yes, there was something about renewal, but did not seem critical. Should be okay, but you can revise if needed. Let's run the same example if you did context engineering. In context engineering, same system and user inputs. So the user instruction has not changed, but then you are adding a memory and you are saying, hey, by the way, here are 3 instructions which I learned from the user right now. They want prior templates, they're controlling third-party handling and indemnity. Here's a long-term memory. This is the playbook of the company, which I have learned working with this customer, that they care about indemnity, they care about governing law, and they care about other things. So you can add all that in your long-term memory, their whole playbook of how they process or what they have learned. Then you find matching NDA templates. You find what are the common red flags that we have pasted in past for NDAs. And maybe you have created 2 tools. One, just to check clauses, that those clauses are even present or not in the NDA that I'm looking for. And if I am, what is the ideal clause and what's the clause here? And just do clause by clause attention specific analysis. And then I have liability scan just for liability. I have a tool which just check, have I done the liability correctly? So you specify what tools are available and what they do. And then you also get the output of those tools if they needs to be run. So now your context has memory, all the tools that are available. And if you ran some tools, what is the output from those tools? And that changes the output that you will get. Now you are flagging these clauses. You're saying same contract, same everything. But because you did context engineering, your agent is saying, hey, there is an uncapped indemnity. Why the earlier one couldn't find it, this one is saying, hey, if you sign this contract, you will indemnify for all the losses unlimited, which could be 1 million, billion, trillion. Second is this contract is renewing automatically after a year. In the long-term memory, you told me that you don't do that. So make sure you explicitly require a renewal notice. And now your product is suddenly 10x better than your competition. And that's exactly what my guy Gil was trying to say in the LinkedIn post. That there are only 2 things you need going forward: context engineering and reinforcement learning. Hopefully we can learn one today and then learn another one next week. What are the problems? Okay, context engineering is great. We all will be doing that. But let me just tell you a few issues that are in context engineering today. What is context poisoning? This is Gemini 2.5 report. But the idea is that if an error has happened in your context, because your context is also updating every time the user is having interactions with you, correct? And if a wrong instruction is added, then you continue to use that instruction again and again, blocking all the progress of the agent. Because you were just reiterating, saying, hey, I learned it, you told me, here it is again, here it is again. For an example, in this report, they talk about a Pokemon game, and they had an agent which is trying to clear, like Mario, the next stage. And in this one, they got a corrupt instruction, and then they continued playing that same thing again and again, no matter new instructions I gave. Once it is in context, I was done. Next is distraction. because the prompts were so simple, right? You gave system instruction, you gave user input, you gave few examples, and that's pretty much it. But now you're giving context, you're giving the memory, you're giving long-term memory, and then you are adding all the tools and then output from the tools and signals. There is just so much information. And what they found out in the same paper, they said anytime they went beyond 100K, the model can take 2 million context. Anybody explain what is context?
Context is your prompt plus if you are using RAG, the
Yes. No, they were good. So context is nothing but all the information that you pass to the model at the time you talk to the model or send instruction. That's your context. And context length is a limit on how much a model can process. For example, Grok released a new model yesterday or day before, and their length is 256K tokens. That's 200K words, roughly. And if you have more than that, they can't take it. Okay, so how much information can you pass to the model is the context limitation of a model. Even if that limitation is 2 million in Gemini 2.1 model, after 100K or 80K words, what they saw is that the model is just distracted. It cannot follow instructions. So you have to make it really succinct and crisp. And if you don't do it, your products will fail. What we saw is if you give 10 tools to the model can correctly identify which tool to call. You add 10 more tools, the model accuracy to call the right same 10 tools, just add 10 more for fun. And the model accuracy to call those same 10 tool in the same instruction reduces by 30%. If I add 10 more, it continues to reduce. So the more information or more tools you add, the lesser chances of it to pick the right correct tool. So now you have to solve for that. And last is context clash, which is, there is just, this study is really cool one. I shared it on LinkedIn yesterday, where they talk about, hey, how these models get lost in conversation. This is what I was talking earlier. If you're doing single conversation, so you call the model, you ask a question, it answers. Your accuracy is 85% or so with GPT 2.5 Pro. And if you ask multiple questions, it drops to 50%, 68%. So same model, same everything. But once you start doing multiple conversations, your accuracy drops. Another thing they found out is if you provide model sharded information, so instead of giving model a single information like this versus step-by-step information, which happen in real conversations, you will tell model, hey, give me this, give me the risk analysis on this NDA. Oh, then you will say, no, sorry. Actually, I want to check indemnification. Oh, sorry. Actually, I want to get to the right jurisdiction. Oh, sorry. I want you to check the liability too. If you give sharded information, the model accuracy dropped by 40%. So that's another challenge you need to handle. So far, what we have done is you understand context engineering, you understand how it is different than prompt engineering. And instead of you leaving and having all the fun, now you know there are already problems on handling the right context, even if you put best of your engineers, and your agents are not going to be perfect. One thing I look for when I used to hire product managers, or most of us when building things look for in people, is people who know the limitation of this tech. And that's what you will know. And hopefully you can find more limitations. I did some work and found it for you. So make sure you know this. And if you know all this, then we can do some 3 cool things after this. And then I will let you go. Payal and Pranav, 2 questions. And then I will move to the next phase of our journey, which is, okay, I know all this, but so what? What you need to do, what we need to do together is coming next. Now you know challenges in context engineering too. So what? What I'm supposed to do as a PM? First, start writing your requirements. So on left-hand side, I have included new key steps in your journey, which is about context engineering. Whatever agent, the controller agent or your agent is doing this context engineering or needs to do the context engineering piece or prompt engineering piece at runtime in your journey, that agent requirements have to have this. which is it needs memory management. You can go broad as please implement short and long-term memory. Believe me, 90% of the agents which are in production today don't have long-term memory. They're just relying on short-term memory. So just put them as your requirement. What should go in long-term memory will come next, which is what is our policy, what we have identified, what is the playbook for NDA contracts. All that should be here. User role and personalization. Did we context size and structuring? What are the tools? What is their schema? Who can use those tools? What is their caching looks like? All those, put them as many as, like, at least put these sections, and then put as much as you know. This will be a forcing function for your team, your engineering team, your partners, your vendors, to build the right thing for you. And once you have that, then you can put the right evaluation. We talk about this 3H framework. So what a helpful context look like? You should have these questions. Is the context aligned with user goal or intent? Is the retrieval specific, timely, and not overloaded? Is memory contributes directly to output quality? That would make the response a context engineering solution helpful. A context engineering solution is honest if you can attribute the tracing, if the context that is there is logged all the time for you to audit, debug, and the system is not fabricating new instructions based on what the user is trying to morph. Your users are very smart also. They will learn that you're uploading this memory, so they will try to corrupt it also. And here you should be able to see that you're not learning those bad behaviors and you're using your training data more than what is put in your memory. And same, you can find out, do you have accesses that the job you are trying to get to? Do you have access? How many times you had access or not? And last but not the least is, what are your metrics? What metrics or what scoreboard can you create for your team so that they are also seeing this progress and we are tracking towards a world where we are improving these contexts and better week on week. So one is intent alignment score. This is how much context that you're feeding into the model is aligned to the current user query. And your data science team can find that based on completeness, relevance, and those things. Thank you, Pranav. What are the irrelevant tokens you have in your context which you are paying every time? This is a cost thing also. You can put 2 million context, but each time you're putting an input, you're paying these model providers. Your cost to customer is increasing. That's your noise ratio. Can I trace what is the memory drift rate, which is how frequently is your outdated or incorrect long-term memory is getting updated. And then access control violations, you need to track them and report them too. So if you can write better requirements, you can write better evaluations, and that allows you to create a better scorecard, which people will follow, you will be an AI PM. I think everything we discussed before these 3 slides, you could have learned, or your engineering can do a great job at somehow. But if you don't provide these requirements, if you don't set this evaluation, and if you don't set this scorecard, so if you're in an interview, just ask your people, hey, when they ask you, do you have any questions? So say, hey, recently I heard about context engineering. It's simple, but can you tell me what metrics have you set, or what scorecard your product manager has set to measure week on week you're improving your context? And believe me, 90% of the time answer would be no. Oh, that's a great idea. Let me go back and do it. And that's where you set your credibility. That's where you say that you know more than them. That's where you bring secrets as common wisdom. And that's what I want all of you to do. And win this new thing that we all need, which is intelligent systems. Let me sell a few things. We are doing AIPM interview bootcamp. This is for the current cohort. If you join, we are happy to add you. Our cohort is starting in August. We have already started this free bootcamp for interviews where I'm sharing all my tips. If you join now, we will give you free recording, and we will give you cohort, which starts in August. I will show up next Friday where we'll talk about redesigning product teams for agentic AI future. We just saw what we need as scorecard. We can just start from here and say, if this is the scorecard, what team you need to deliver that kind of progress week on week on a context engineering or the other things you need in this new AI world. That's what we will talk about. If you follow this, scan this QR code, we can add you automatically for all future sessions. So you need not to just go every time. And that's it. Thank you. That's our analogy. We want to be David beating Goliath. I will see you again. And till then, bye. Take care.